Well, hello there everyone. My name is Amy, the Zepanelli woman, and welcome to the first Crafty Reads of 2022. Woo woo! I today have decided to dress up like Ariel the friggin' mermaid because I dyed my hair yesterday and I saw this dress in my cupboard and I was like, you're a vibe. You're a vibe today. And then I put into some purple eyes. I'm feeling myself right now. But that's not what we're here for. We are here today to go through the last 5 books that I read while I craft. So you guys, if you watched the last Crafty Reads, I was just doing the backdrop for the piece. So I haven't worked on it off camera. So I'm going to be working a little bit on that today. And then I want to cut big like droplets out of this. It's like packaging. It's shiny on one side and more matte on the other. So I want to cut some droplets out of that as well. So we'll see how the pens fare. And while they're juicing up again, I can cut them out. So the first book that I read was Play It As It Lays by Joan Didion. Now, yeah, I started off the year with a bang. So this is basically Joan Didion. She passed away actually while my sibling was reading this book on holiday, and then while my sibling finished it, I was like, don't you want to send it my way? Because she's a very lauded writer, but it's a very hard book to describe what it's about. So it's written in vignettes. And I found that vignettes really work for me. I don't like short stories, but short chapters within a story, they seem to really work for me. And she writes so beautifully and so sparsely. She doesn't use too many words. She uses exactly the amount of words that need to be used in that moment in time. And she's very careful with her words. And I think just reading the back is probably like the easiest thing to say what it's about. A ruthless dissection of American life in late 1960s. Play It As It Lays captures the mood of an entire generation, the emptiness and ennui of contemporary society reflected in sparse prose that both blisters and haunts the reader. So while it does follow some characters and these people that are based like in Hollywood, it's not purely about like a plot within that setting. It's about the interpersonal relationships between those people and how society affects people in different ways and the experience of being a woman in that time. So it really goes into a lot of like nuances of society, and she does it so beautifully that I definitely want to pick up more of her books. Like this is very artful writing when you can say a lot without saying very much at all. Then the next book that I picked up, I have been needing to pick up for a very long time, and that's The Shepherd's Crown by Terry Pratchett. I haven't spoken too much about Terry Pratchett on here because I read most of his books when I was a kid. We used to have audiobooks of them, like cassette tapes, and then digital versions later. And I've read so many of them, but I'm not sure which ones I've missed because I didn't keep track when I was a kid. But this is Terry Pratchett's final novel that he wrote before. I think people had to help him finish it because he passed away from Alzheimer's in 2015. But this is a beautiful, like bittersweet sort of end. Like a well-loved character at the beginning of this. Like something happens that's quite like it's like, oh God, my heart. And the rest of the story, it follows Tiffany Aching, who's a witch of 2 different steadings, and it's about all of the things that she has to do. And there's trouble afoot. And the Feagles are there to help her, which are like these little blue men that are like Scottish. And the wee Feagles. They're very cute. But if you want some really whimsical, weird, and funny fantasy, look no further than Terry Pratchett. Then I finally read A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown. And this book has been on my TBR for ages because like BookTube has been going absolutely freaking bananas for it. And what I really wish is that I got to read it in one go. But because of the holiday, I started reading it before the holiday, and then the holidays happened, and then my phone was in for repairs. So there was a big gap at a very tense point in the story. So like I kind of lost the tension, which was a bit disappointing, but it wasn't the fault of the book at all. So I'm definitely going to be picking up the next book in this series. It is a duology, which is really nice for fantasy. It's so rare that you get duologies. and it is on script, so I'm definitely going to pick it up. It's basically African folklore based fantasy, and it follows two different characters, Malik and Karina, and they're in the same world, but they're not in the same world. Malik's life is very different to Karina's. She is royal, she is a princess. He is a refugee from a part of the country that gets really discriminated against in the city that he's in, and he ends up being part of this competition. And the things that him and Karina want both directly combat the other, and are working completely opposing to each other without them even knowing. And it's so interesting to watch how that plays out. And it was so refreshing to have a fantasy that wasn't Eurocentric. It was super great. So I'm definitely going to pick up the next one, even if this one didn't hit me as much as I want. I really don't think it's the book's fault. It is 100% the timing's fault. Then I picked up another book that I've been wanting to read for such a long time, and that's Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. This is a proof copy, which is why it looks like this. So this is a debut novel, and this author is one to watch. Oh my gosh, let me tell you. I'm going to be picking up everything she writes from now on, for sure. So Such a Fun Age follows Emira, who's a nanny. She's a babysitter, and she's out at a party one night, and the family that she babysits for messages her or calls her and says, like, we've had an emergency, can you please come and get her and like occupy her for a little while? And she says, sure, no problem. Takes her to this grocery store, and at the grocery store she gets stopped by security and questioned because they think she's kidnapped the baby. And it goes, sort of the rest of the story is based around that event. As much as Amira is trying to move on from it and trying to forget that it happened and just get on with her life, there's the people in her life, the white people in her life, are making it absolutely impossible for her to forget what she went through and to just move on from it in the way that she deems fit. But they seem to think that they know better than her and seem to just not be listening to her wishes at all. And it really shows a lot of nuanced relationships between her. So it's got her relationship with her white boyfriend and her relationship with the woman that she babysits for. And you can see from everyone else's perspective as well. So you can see how they see things and how much they just don't credit Emira with knowing what's good for her, and Emira in knowing what's good for her and just listening to what she wants. They're just constantly they've got the best of intentions but with the worst execution, basically. So reading that as a white person is very confronting, because you realize, you see yourself in it, you can see yourself when you're trying to do things that are like, for someone's own good, or you think you're doing a certain action to uplift someone when actually that's more of a fetishization, or setting someone as other, or something like that. And it really makes it very, very clear how careful we have to be as white people to be as anti-racist as possible, even with our internal thoughts, bringing up these internal thoughts, considering why they've appeared, and then working to fix it. And I think that book was all about those relationships and Amira taking back her power, and it was perfect. So as I said, Kylie Reid is a author to watch, and that is I'm going to be picking up everything that woman writes. Holy moly. Still looking quite cool. Rothko-esque. And then the last book that I read was As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. So after A Song of Breaks and Ruin, I was like, okay, high fantasy is, quite intense. So I'm going to treat myself with a good old mystery. Oh God, was I ever wrong? And yes, this book is a cozy mystery by definition. The series is, But I'm not going to spoil anything from the series, don't worry, because I really think this is a series that people should go read. It's really entertaining and fun and light-hearted a lot of the time, but it does go into some deep shit. It's not completely like fluffy, you know. But in this one, something happened at the end of the last book, and it's really traumatized Pip, and she's really not doing well. And I think that's one of the things that this book did perfectly, is speak about trauma and healthy coping mechanisms. And like Pip's there, like not doing well at all from this traumatic event that happened, but she's not asking for help. She's just putting on this front, pretending to be absolutely fine, and she's the absolute opposite of that. And I think the book writes that in a really, really delicate and well handled way, like very sympathetic, which I think shows you how good Holly Jackson is as a writer. So I'm going to, like, the ending I wasn't too much of a fan of, and that is disappointing for like a series, but I still recommend the series a lot. And I think especially the first 2 books are a lot more of like a romp, but I'm definitely going to pick up more of Holly Jackson's writing. She's a great writer, and I thoroughly enjoyed that series. And that's it. Oh my god. I just sat here and happily talked away about these books. This is why I love Crafty reads. I've just finished the background, as you saw, and I've been cutting out some of these. So these drippies, I will be working into this background, and then we're going to see what we're going to do from there. But that'll be in the next Crafty reads. If you've read any of these books, let me know down below, or any books that you've read recently. That would also be cool. If you like this, please give it a like, maybe even subscribe to me. That would be very kind. And tickle my bell for notifications. And I'll take you next time.